Hi, my name is Brent Satoris. I'm here with Amy Vernon, who's Director of Audience Engagement at Daily Dot. We are at SEJ Summit in Chicago, where Amy is going to be speaking later today. I'll be speaking myself as well. And I wanted to grab her and just ask a couple questions of you while we were here. So you've been involved for a long time in the newsroom. You were actually in journalism and in the newsroom, and you left that and went into social media really about the same time I did, but kind of at the very beginning of social media. They didn't even call it that back then. And you kind of did a lot of like social promotion and a lot of work in social media kind of outside of the journalism angle, outside of the newsroom. And now with your new role, you've kind of gone back into almost like a newsroom kind of environment. I'm very curious if you could, share with us any of the lessons that you kind of learned from stepping away from the newsroom and really getting a chance to experience social media kind of in the wild and then coming back into it. What do you feel like really applies to your role at Daily Dot today?
What's really kind of interesting is that in the interim, sort of everybody else discovered suddenly that there are publishers now. And so even in being outside the newsroom, I was never away from, it wasn't necessarily news or journalism in the same way, but it was still information presented in ways that were interesting enough that people would actually want to read it or consume it in some sort of way. I'm trying not to say the word content, but it's kind of hard to get away from. So in going back, really what I brought with me was the idea that as journalists, we really have to bring something special to it now, because there's a lot of things we used to have in newspapers or on radio or TV, all the entertainment type of stuff. So in the newspaper would have been the comics or the crossword puzzle or Sudoku or all those things, as well as the classified ads, which you can, all those other things that people also bought the newspaper for, you can get everywhere else. So what we need to do in a newsroom environment is to actually provide what all those other places can't provide. And that's using our expertise as journalists to get to the bottom of the story, to explain complicated topics in a way that people understand. Because I think we kind of got lazy in journalism. We had stories that we would call oatmeal death because they were so boring that we were afraid people were going to fall asleep in their oatmeal and suffocate. That was our joke name for it. But the thing is, we can't afford to do that oatmeal death anymore. They may be important, but we have to find a way to make it more interesting.
One of the things that I remember from, I've worked with a number of different publishers, and when I was working with Meredith, one of the things that we realized is that magazines got that kind of, you would have like I use that because of our website, but you would have reader association with a magazine. So I have this magazine, it comes to me, it's what I read. Therefore, regardless of the quality of the articles, I would pretty much read them because I didn't have a lot of choice. And then when things went online, people started having a lot more choices. So when it comes to like really engaging the audience, like what kind of things do you guys work on? Like how do you approach content with the idea of influencing engagement?
Sure. Well, our sort of tagline is the hometown paper of the internet. So the idea is that we are immersed in internet culture and cover the internet like as its own place. So that doesn't mean that it's all like cat memes and stuff like that. But cybersecurity, we had an article yesterday about 154 million voter records that were released online. So that's the kind of value. And in terms of the engagement, especially in the meme stories, we've found people are very attached to their memes. And you know this from having spent a lot of time on Reddit, where like any mainstream publication or some publication that someone deems mainstream writes about it, the meme is dead and it's awful and we've killed it. But we've found that actually talking with those people who are very upset at us, started turning them around, and they've actually sent us memes that they want to see us write about. And really, when it comes down to it, that's the thing. It's just actually talking to people and treating them like they're people. And when you do that, they then start remembering that there's people behind it and start treating you like people.
Absolutely. That's something that really plays a lot of role in customer service as well. It's like make sure you handle the issue and talk to the people as if they're, human beings. A lot of times people just want to be heard, right? So a lot of publishers, even a lot of non-publisher websites are really craving audience engagement right now. I mean, more than anything, we're like, look, we need to create something that gets people involved. What do you see when from your experience, are some of the things that maybe people haven't been doing right? Or you could phrase it like, what should people be doing to kind of increase engagement that you've noticed? Like any low-hanging fruit that you can think of?
Well, honestly, I think the lowest hanging fruit is actually responding to people. When we started responding to people, they were saying, "You're the only page who's ever responded to me."
And when you say response, you mean like through social or through the comments or through?
In any of those ways. In this particular case that I'm talking about, it was actually messages to our Facebook page. And we started responding to people who were upset about various things. There was one moment, it didn't even have anything to do with the meme stuff. There was something on the Facebook page she didn't like. I asked her why, and she didn't like it, but she's like, I appreciate that you actually were concerned and wanted to know what upset me about it, and I'm not gonna unfollow yet. I'll give it more time and just see how things go. And just by saying, I'm listening to you, obviously we disagree on this, but I really appreciate you reaching out, she turned from someone who was ready to just click unfollow to someone who said, well, they actually do care about me. And it seems so ridiculous because engagement is like the buzzword that's been hammered into everyone's heads. But actually just speaking to people, whether it's in comments, whether it's on Facebook or on Twitter, actually responding to people. And the other part of that is being true to who you are. So you don't want to be like Steve Buscemi. Hello, fellow teenagers. You don't want to be that person. You want to still speak in the voice that's true to your publication, to your brand, or whatever, because people see right through that. And even if your voice is a little stuffier than the people who are speaking to you, if it's true to whoever you are, they respect that still. They don't want you like when I talk to my kids, they don't want me to talk slang back to them. Then that ruins it. That spoils the whole thing.
So really just taking the time to really engage with people through the different channels and, I guess you would probably want to, how do you feel about people in the tones they take? Can you be personable? Should you be more like a conversation, or where do you take a stance of being more like a company response versus a friendly person response?
Well, and there are so part of it is consistency. So part of it is if that's the way if you're generally responding more as a company and more in the third person, to do that consistently. Though if there's something very egregious or something that you really need to address, when you do change it to that personal, it means a lot more. But it really is about figuring out what is the voice of the brand. I teach a class on social media at NYU. There's no accounting for taste. And I have examples of different companies that on their social channels are speaking in very different ways. And what I found in those examples is that in each case it's very true to who they are. Like the Mayo Clinic is a lot more official. Yes. But you kind of want the Mayo Clinic you don't want the Mayo Clinic throwing out a cat meme at you. You're kind of like, aren't you doctors?
When Taco Bell does a little bit of edgy stuff, it's kind of like, all right,
it's Taco Bell.
Right, okay,
exactly.
I got you.
So it's really figuring out who you are and how you want your company to be perceived, and then talking to people. And it's people, and I learned this in the newsroom, when I would answer the phone and talk to people, they just wanted to be heard. They would be yelling at me, and I would interrupt them sometimes because they wouldn't let me answer their questions, and I'd say, do you just need to vent? And if so, that's great. I won't try to answer, and I'll just get some work done here while you're yelling. I totally get that. But if you want any questions answered, you need to let me, get a word in. And they would stop suddenly. One out of 100 would hang up. But the rest of them would suddenly stop and remember, oh, I'm talking to a person, not the newspaper. And again, it's so easy to turn those situations around if you're just human to them.
Awesome. So if anybody wanted to follow you right now, get in touch with you through social, through your channels, what would be some places people can follow you?
I am at Amy Vernon pretty much everywhere, on Twitter, Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, I think everywhere except for Snapchat, Last.fm, and Gmail.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Cheers.
I will not give because I was wrong on some things, some other things, way too many times, and I just don't want to be wrong anymore. But yes, we definitely look at how we can expand AMP to other verticals. If you were following the I/O announcements, there we also announced that for recipes it's now available.
Audience doesn't want, we won't publish it. And we do negotiate that with various merchants.
Oh, so you can actually see that there's a deal and you'll go try to negotiate to get a price, or?
Sometimes that's a deal that is being offered only to our readers, so we have an exclusive on it. Other times we're going out to thousands of retailers and looking for the lowest deal ourselves.
Is that something that an average person can